before we can make it to the basketball court, these dudes pull up on us. And so we're stopped, they're stopped, and he just like, hey, get off the bike, give me the bike. And I'm like, no, I'm not giving you my bike. And so like, because people are watching, there's like other kids around.
Oh, shit.
And so I'm trying to be tough. He's like, get off the bike before I make you give it to me. I'm like, I want to see you make me give it to you. Like, I'm trying to be tough, you know what I mean? And then he just pulls out a gun.
Oh, shit.
And he puts it on my face. Like, puts the steel, like, on my face of the gun. And I just start, I just start bawling. I just start crying.
Yeah.
I'm, like, terrified. And so he takes the bike, and they go off. But the crazy thing about the story is I've told the story a million times. I never even thought about the crazy part being the crazy part. The crazy part is that I, for so long in that moment and thereafter, felt ashamed of myself and embarrassed and humiliated for being because I'm a man, and I cried as a 13-year-old boy who had a gun pulled on him and put on his face.
Yeah.
The other crazy part of the story is that like 10 minutes later, a Honda Accord whips around the corner, and the dude that stole my bike is sitting in the back in between two other dudes, and my bike's in the trunk.
Oh, shit.
They give me my bike, and they said, hey, Mrs. Barnaby, don't worry, you ain't going to see these guys around here anymore. I don't know what ever happened to them.
Oh, snap.
Yeah, but
somebody had your back.
Yeah, somebody had my back.
Yeah. All right, what's up, guys? Welcome back to episode 5 of Ask the Next Question. I'm Joshua.
I'm Colten.
We got a great show for you all tonight, but before we get started, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you're on YouTube. Leave us a review if you're on podcasts. We're across all podcast platforms. We love hearing from you guys, so if you have any topics you want to hear us talk about in the future, feel free to let us know, and also follow us on social media at Ask the Next Question. We're on Instagram, TikTok. I think we're not on Facebook yet. Maybe we'll get there eventually. But
yeah, I don't know if I'm on my mom's or dad's.
Right, yeah, I don't know. We might leave Facebook out for now. But yeah, man, appreciate you guys rocking with us. But we got a great show for you. How you doing tonight, man?
I'm good, man. I'm chilling. It's about to snow in Chicago. It's actually already snowing in Chicago. And so we'll see. They said it's like going to be 7 to 9 inches.
Yeah, I guess that's what you get straight off the lake.
Yeah, you get that lake effect snow, and it gets crazy. But this is your first Chicago winter.
It is my first Chicago winter.
Okay, but you're no stranger to it. You're Ohio boy, but any differences so far you noticing?
I mean, the wind is crazy. So I grew up in Columbus, and it, back then winters got pretty bad, but of course you're in a car. I don't have a car here, so that's going to be one difference. And then I lived in Cleveland, which is off of...
It's a big difference when you're walking everywhere in that wind.
Yeah, so even when I was in New York, having to walk everywhere, it was like, oh, this is different. Yeah. I got to do some calculation in my head. How much do I really want to go on this errand? Or how much do I really want to go on this coffee shop when it feels like 2 degrees outside and the wind is blowing?
Bro, it's crazy because there's a conspiracy out there to make people that visit Chicago think that it's not called the Windy City because of the wind. Like if you literally go on the riverboat tour, architecture tour, any Chicago tour, you often hear people say this. And I think it's because those people it sounds like a good fact where they'll be like, it actually isn't because it's a windy city. It's actually because if you look at this article from the 1800 blah, 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 it was actually because the politicians in Chicago talked so much and they blew so much hot air that's why they called it the Windy City. That's not true.
Yeah, that sounds like bullshit.
It's because it's fucking windy in Chicago.
When I first got here, it was like April, and I was trying to talk to my friend on the phone, and this was like probably the first week. Yeah. It was so windy. I could not hear. You couldn't hear me. I'm like, oh yeah, no, it's the Windy City. And
there is an article that said that, but that was a play on the fact that it was already called the Windy City. Yeah, but everyone think they have like this extra special little nugget of wisdom to drop in. Dude, if you walk downtown, like just wait, dude, because when it gets really cold, not only is the wind blowing off that lake, but living around tall buildings,
it's the wind tunnels.
It's like it creates tunnels of wind, and they will cut you, right? So like, I will actually like wear like a full face thing, at times, just because it might not even be technically that cold, but the wind can just like brutalize you.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was the other day it was 50 degrees, but it felt like 30. And I think earlier today it was like 30 something, felt like 15.
It felt that the wind chill was 15.
Yeah. So it gets crazy. Like I said, I lived in Cleveland for a little bit, so we got a lot of lake effect snow, but the wind, it got bad, but it was never like super crazy. So I think this will be a little different.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I know at least tomorrow our kids' daycare is, not opening until 9:30. So that throws off my whole morning. But I normally, dude, one interesting thing about Chicago is people can drive in the snow, they can drive in a blizzard, and it's normal. But for some reason, as soon as it sprinkles a little tiny bit of rain, they can't drive. It's like it takes 3 times as long to get anywhere. The traffic is crazy, but the snow, no problem.
It's weird, man.
Yeah, it'll be all right. So, hopefully tomorrow won't be too bad. I don't think it's even going to really lay on the ground too much because I don't think it's
hopefully
cold
not
enough. Yeah.
And this is where working from home is clutch.
Yeah, for sure.
You can stay at home, work, don't have to go anywhere. So it'll be good. But we got a few topics for you guys tonight. But we're going to kick it off with some big news that happened in New York City. I don't know if you heard.
Something did the Knicks finally win a game or something like that?
I think the mayor to be was sporting the Knicks jersey and was at the Knicks game.
Okay.
But yeah, so if you didn't hear, Zohran Mamdani is going to be the new mayor-elect of New York City, which is pretty exciting, not only for the residents of New York, but I've seen people celebrating from Ohio to Colorado to California. It feel like we needed a win. For sure. Those of us who are on the left, we needed something to feel good about. I know Trump's been flooding the zone for about 11 months now, and it feels like every day's been bad news. And so it was nice to see something that was a little bit more hopeful. Yeah.
And, hopeful, but, there's no shortage of hot takes to go around.
Absolutely
about the Mamdani win on all sides.
Yeah, there's a lot of takes, but from the right to the left. But I want to show something that cracked me up real quick from brother Deontay Kyle, because, the right is freaking out. They've been calling him a communist. They've been calling him, he's going to enforce Sharia law. So some people on the left, we've been trolling him a little bit.
Yeah, he's going to enforce that trans Sharia law.
Exactly, whatever they think he's going to do. But yeah, let's watch this real quick from Deontay.
If I was Zohran Mamdani, I'd have been like, Donald Trump, I got 2 words for you. Allahu Akbar.
I love that dude.
Yo, he's hilarious.
Bro, Deontay is hilarious, man.
He's talented, man. But I don't know. I think it reminds me of back when I was in Cleveland, and this was like 2018-19, and the Cleveland Browns, who have been a historically terrible franchise, they had me really wanting to stop watching the NFL for a couple years. First year we went 1-15. And the head coach, Hugh Jackson, was like, we're going to make a change. It's not going to be different. Next season went 0-16. Right. So then the season afterwards, I had just moved to Cleveland, and we start off the season slow, per usual. And, I was driving back home. I was the campus minister at the time. So I was driving back to my apartment with some coworkers, and we were listening to the game on the radio. We're playing the Jets. And it was coming down to the wire, and Baker Mayfield, it was his first year. He was a rookie. We were playing the Jets, and we finally came through with the win. And as we were coming back into the city, we were a little bit outside the city. People were honking their horn, cheering out the window, fired up like we had just won the Super Bowl. We just needed something. We just had so much misery for the past couple years. So it felt like that energy is kind of what's happened. There's been so much frustration and misery that we just need a victory. And even if it's not everything, at least it's something. It's something.
To me, it's not even so much a victory for Zohran as much as it is a victory for the message and for the growing class consciousness that's happening in this country. I think like the most important thing that needs to happen is that people need to gain class consciousness. And what this kind of shows is that we're kind of burgeoning there on the edge. There's a burgeoning class consciousness growing in the country, which is pretty cool because it's showing, hey, you can have a message that is in defiant opposition to the powers that be, to the structures of capitalism. And that can be a winning message, even in a place like New York, which they say, oh, that's just New York. That's not, you think New York is any less capitalist than Oklahoma?
It's the capitalist center of the world, isn't it?
It's the capital of capitalism, right? Like these people are crazy. They think that kind of a message isn't going to win all over the country, because he's stood up, he's standing up for LGBTQ rights and minority rights and all this different stuff. But also at the end of the day, if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense to people all around the country. And so if you can have a message that talks about putting, food on their tables and money in their pockets, I mean, I think that really matters. And that's what a lot of people, if you don't remember this, guys, Republicans did not like Donald Trump at the beginning of that 2016 primary race.
That's right.
Right? Like, people did not like him, but he came out with a quote-unquote populist message. I think it was insincere and fake, obviously. Absolutely. But a message that talked to people about bringing jobs back to America, bringing, creating more financial stability, fixing the health insurance problem, which he says he has a plan coming out like in 2 weeks, every 2 weeks.
Got concepts of a plan
2015,
again.
Concepts of a plan.
Yeah.
But, because what's interesting is in a place like Oklahoma where I lived during that election, Donald Trump represents everything that evangelical Christianity morally was against.
Right.
And so a lot of people wondered, like, well, how can they turn a blind eye to this? Well, there was enough racism lumped in there that made them feel comfortable that they were able to be open to hearing his message. Well, I think that people are all over the country, partially because of the victories of people like Donald Trump and the rhetoric of some of those folks. They're primed and open for a message, an anti-capitalist message, actually. And so, my take on this is it's a nice victory, but what most people do, and I know this from being in business and working in sales, what most people do when they start to get a little bit of momentum, Josh, they take their foot off the gas. When they start winning a little bit, they stop doing the things that help them to start win. And so what we need to do is realize we got to put pedal to the metal. This isn't like celebrate, but this is time to get out there and organize even harder, to have those conversations, to push that buck. People are curious. Why did people vote for Mandani? How did he win? Anybody who understands this should be relentless in pushing the message. He won because he talked about meeting people in their pocketbook. And at the end of the day, that's what people want and need. Yeah,
and I think this is the sort of discourse that we need in the aftermath of the election, because I keep hearing, and this is my own problem for listening to CNN or listening to the New York Times podcast, just because I want to understand what they're talking about. But I'm like, I need to throw that shit out, because they're asking the wrong questions. They're asking, what does this mean for Donald Trump? They're asking, what does this mean for the Democratic Party? Is he going to be the face of the Democratic Party, which I know you're going to touch on in the future. But the question that we should be asking is, what does this mean for the people in New York?
That's right.
What did the people say that they wanted? If we're in a democracy, the question we should be asking is not who are the politicians now, like what is going to shift in their position? What's going to shift in their perspective? But we need to ask, what does it say about the people, and how do the people want to be governed as a result of this?
That's exactly right. The question is always, this whole election has been, well, how's this going to make rich people feel? Are billionaires going to want to leave? Here, I saw a hilarious clip from The Daily Show. They went back to like 2010 and they showed like a clip from every year of people talking about, it's getting, their taxes are too high in New York. All the rich people are going to leave. All the millionaires are going to leave. Every year since 2010, that in these clips, I bet it was happening before then. And then they showed the amount that there's like 33,000 more millionaires living in New York City than there was when that started. What's interesting to me, though, is why aren't we talking about what's going to, if we don't do something different, what's going to happen to all the regular people? All the regular people are going to leave. You think New York can survive being an empty city that's just a husk shell for a few elite? Who's going to work all those jobs? Who's going to do it? It doesn't make any sense.
Why are we asking the question, when are the rich people going to leave? When if the city is too expensive, and I lived there, it was expensive as hell. I couldn't stay there because it was too expensive. I'm a regular person.
Yeah, you had to, prime example, Exhibit A.
I was there. It wasn't because they was taxing a millionaire.
That's right.
I'm not no millionaire. I'm a regular person. It's too expensive.
The other aspect of that too is, they're like, well, how's he going to get all of this stuff done? He can't unilaterally raise these taxes. He's going to need the governor's support. He's going to need the state assembly support. Okay, well, guess what? There is a wide popular base of support for the things Zohran said he's going to do. Those people, if they want to be obstinate and defiant of that, then they can say goodbye to their positions.
Absolutely.
And that's who they should really be scared of. Because at the end, what did we just show? All these billionaires can donate as much money as they want, but when class consciousness rises within the people, and we actually can just assert our power through our democracy and vote in what we want, they should all be very scared about opposing those positions.
Absolutely. I think it's interesting as well to see, again, the rich folks are trying to kind of control the discourse, right? And they've been doing this for years. We know Washington Post is owned by the former CEO of Amazon. We know that Elon Musk has taken over X. And so it's very clear that they want to control the narrative. And even CBS has now kind of been taken over and moved in a different direction. Donald Trump is very clearly trying to control the narrative of what happens in the political realm. But I saw a few clips that are interesting to me. One from Elon and then another from the CEO of Palantir, which it's kind of, it feels to me a bit like sour grapes, right? Like they didn't get what they wanted. They put all this money into making sure that Andrew Cuomo won. They didn't get what they wanted. So now they're kind of they're kind of
millions of dollars, bro.
They're trying to piss on the working class or regular people, even people that are middle class, right? And they're like, oh, these people have luxury beliefs, is what they call it. These people don't know what they're talking about. All the rich people are going to leave. Let's just play this clip from Elon Musk real quick. You see what I'm talking about? So this is him talking to Joe Rogan, and he's talking a little bit about how Mamdani is a swindler. That's what he calls him. So
A swindler.
When you say Mandani's a swindler, I know he has a bunch of fake accents that he used to use.
Yeah.
And, but what else has he done that makes him a swindler?
Well, I guess if you say if you say to any audience whatever that audience wants to hear, instead of having a consistent message, I would say that is a swindly thing to do. But he is charismatic.
Yeah, good-looking guy, smart, charismatic.
Yeah.
Great on a microphone.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
what the young people want to see, like this ethnic guy who's young and.
Bro, these people can't even get a freaking sentence out, bro.
that's why Elon Musk had to take over X, because he's not going to be able to get anybody on his side just by talking to him.
Oh my
He's the
God,
most uncharismatic person I think I've ever seen in my life.
And they're just dumb. Like at the end of the day, they don't even know how to talk. He sounds like that's how Peter Thiel talks every time he talks.
Yeah.
That's the pot calling the kettle black. A swindler, somebody who just says whatever people want to hear. Elon Musk has been telling us we're going to get all these different things 6 months from now for the last.
We're going to get these AI
decade.
robots that can go into our house and do our dishes.
Yeah, we're supposed to be on Mars by 2024. He's supposed to have landed on the moon in 2024, which he got a bunch of money from the government for that project. By the way, he spent it almost all. We're nowhere near getting back onto the moon with that project. It's crazy, bro.
So if anybody's swindling, it's him. But let's play this. This is the CEO of Palantir talking about why his response to Zohran Mamdani winning.
I think the average, Ivy League grad voting for this mayor is highly annoyed that their education is not that valuable, and the person down the street who knows how to drill for oil and gas who's moved to Texas has a more valuable profession. And I think that annoys the fuck out of these people.
He's saying that people are upset because the degree that they were told by his class of people to get is no longer as valuable as it once was.
Right.
And he's saying that they're pissed because of that.
Right.
Shouldn't they be pissed?
Yes.
Why wouldn't they be pissed?
Exactly.
So him and Elon Musk, and I've seen other people, and we'll get to.
Bro, this guy, by the way, is a straight ghoul. Like, everyone in America needs to go just watch. Like, honestly, he should stop doing interviews because he's lost the plot.
Right.
And he says that stuff out loud all the time.
Does he think he's being persuasive?
I don't know, bro. I saw him the other day say, like, you know what my job is at Palantir? Palantir's job is to make Americans feel safe. And the way we make Americans feel safe is you feel safe if you know that I can kill the people that scare you.
That's insane to say out loud.
Bro, these people are cartoon comic book villains,
right,
bro.
it's mask off. They don't care. They're not trying to hide their intentions anymore. They know, at least they feel like we've got the power, we've got the control, so now we can just say whatever the fuck we want.
Yeah.
And people just got to deal with it.
Yeah, it's crazy, dude.
It's insane. But again, back to the point, like he's pointing out, and I saw there's a guy on Twitter named Rob Henderson. He's kind of a little bit more right wing, and kind of plays in that Rogan sphere podcast land universe. But he talks about this idea of luxury beliefs, and he talked about it in the context of a lot of different things in the past. But he called out Zohran Mamdani and his supporters for having luxury beliefs, and he's calling out socialism as a luxury belief. And from his perspective, a luxury belief is a belief that people hold to accrue status, but they're not going to necessarily feel the unintended consequences of this belief. So he thinks that socialism is going to disproportionately hurt the working class, but these rich, high-class individuals are virtue signaling socialism to gain status.
I see.
I think there's a lot of bullshit in this argument.
It sounds like it's entirely bullshit to me.
For one, the people that he's calling rich are these quote-unquote Ivy League grads. People making a lot of money, mind you.
Yeah.
But they're not the fucking CEO of Palantir.
Yeah, right.
They're not Elon Musk.
They're still working class.
They're still working class. And a lot of them aren't even able to get jobs now. You've seen Harvard Business School. Their graduates are having a harder time than ever finding jobs. Yeah. And so there's a lot of people who are starting to see capitalism, which would have historically worked for them, is not working anymore. So he calls them out as having luxury beliefs. So that's one problem. Another problem is it's back to this like anti-intellectualism, because he says these people are overly educated, right? And so they've got too much schooling. They've read too many books. And so they've somehow been miseducated into thinking that socialism is going to work. When it's back to Donald Trump. He says he doesn't like smart people. He likes people that are not dumb, that are not educated, because they're easier to manipulate. They're more easily propagandized. And so I think this idea of luxury beliefs, when pointed out to someone like a Zohran Mamdani, both his supporters and him himself, it's a misnomer. Because I think if people learn and study and understand socialism, they're not doing so because it's something that is going to accrue them a better life.
Right.
What about socialism is going to accrue you a better life? You may, quote unquote, get social capital in some respects, but I don't even think you get that much social capital in America for being a socialist.
No. Like, there are people watching this right now that are like probably have already clicked off because
we said socialism.
Because we said socialism and we seem like we're for it, right?
Yeah.
If anything, it's a deficit to you in this country,
right?
And it's people like that. They're functioning off of a non-definition of socialism.
Yeah.
Like they're hoping that nobody, and they themselves probably actually just don't actually know what it means, right? Because even Mamdani, right? He might personally have socialist beliefs. He might believe that the best structure for our economy be a socialist structure, but none of the policies he's purporting are socialist policies, right? Like, he's purporting what we call social democracy, right? Which is different than even democratic socialism, right? And so, really just a better, a softer social safety net within the system of capitalism.
Yeah.
Which is which there's an argument even on the left of if, does that actually move us towards socialism, or does it just put, a pretty face on capitalism? I always think of the passage of scripture where Jesus is talking to the Pharisees and Sadducees. He calls them whitewashed sepulchers, right? Or whitewashed tombs, right? That they look nice on the outside, but inside they're full of dead man's bones. So a lot of people on the left, like socialists, especially in the more ML, like Marxist-Leninist camp, would look at that and go, hey, actually, you by trying to soften the damage that's inflicted by capitalism, what you're actually doing is creating an opportunity for capitalism to look better to more people and last a little bit longer. It reminds me of Oscar Wilde saying that the worst slave owners were those that were kind to their slaves because they put a human face on the system of capitalism, thereby ensuring it can last a little bit longer. And so there's a lot of people I see on the left actually criticizing Mamdani and being like, he's a liberal and we don't support him, right? Now, I'm somewhere like a little bit in between there, right? Like, I think that like if we can actually run a campaign that raises class consciousness and that can actually move us there, but that's why I'm talking about you got to put the pedal to the metal. It can't just be we won this one little victory, and it can't even just be trying to win the policies. What Zohran is doing for New York is great, but he's doing it for New York.
Right.
That's not for the rest of us.
Right. We're celebrating because we like the signal that it's showing.
That's right.
Right.
But like they could get free buses and some a state-run grocery store in one in each of the 5 boroughs, a rent-freeze, universal daycare, and all of the universal childcare. But that doesn't help anybody else. So we got to put the pedal to the metal and all across the country start to organize. I think this is the time, if ever, like if you're an online leftist and you're watching this and you're not actually a part of a leftist organization, like a socialist organization in your hometown, you need to do it. I'm looking up, and I'm speaking to myself because I'm not currently, and I think I'm actually going to join the PSL, the Party for Socialism and Liberation. I think they're the one that I've been really doing a lot of investigating. I think they most closely align with where I'm at and what I think right now.
Okay. Yeah, and so, tap in. For looking into mutual aid networks as well in Chicago.
Yes, all that kind of stuff. And so, it's just incredibly important. But yeah, it's crazy. They really want us to believe that, we're going to be damaged by socialism. Just come back over to here to this trickle down side, right? Because it's been working out so well for you over here, and we're heading on a great trajectory.
The most expensive city in the world is just great, man. $4,000 in rent, man, it can't get any worse than that.
It's hilarious. Bro, these people have no real solutions. We talk about like them saying that the millionaires are going to leave New York City, the billionaires are going to leave. Have you seen any of this stuff with 50 Cent?
No.
So 50 is super against Zohran. Yeah. He's been like very anti-Zohran for a long time. I
saw that Zohran came out to Ja Rule kind of like a little slight at 50.
No, I didn't even catch that. That's hilarious. hilarious. Oh my gosh.
I think I was
W Zohran. Yo, they got me rooting for John now.
I'm rooting for John Root.
But okay, so 50 Cent has been trying to give Zohran the Floyd Mayweather treatment on his Instagram. And he said the other day, like, everyone needs to leave New York now. You know where he's trying to get them to go?
Where?
He's trying to rally all the rich people to leave New York and move to Shreveport, Louisiana.
Oh my God.
He's trying to get them to move the capital. You know what? He's trying to get the capitalists to leave the capital of capitalism to go to the capital of gonorrhea. Like that's what Shreveport's known for. Hey, no disrespect, right? I got mad love.
People gonna get you in the comments.
My wife is from Baton Rouge. I got mad love for all my people in
my dad spent some
Louisiana.
time in Baton Rouge.
My dad's born in Bogalusa, Louisiana, right? So I got Louisiana in my
I didn't know it was like that down there.
Shreveport's cool. Shreveport's got a lot of cool people. But one of the things that happened was after Hurricane Katrina, and I saw Christian Divine, I think is his name. I follow him. I just, you follow people on social media, and, but I don't. He spells it weird, so I don't know if that's how he says it.
No, I know what you're talking about.
Do you know what I'm talking about? He's hilarious.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever heard talk about his background growing up. His mom's a Christian. His dad is in a vampire religion.
What the fuck? I never.
His dad is like a vamp or something like that.
That's a thing?
Apparently, dude.
I'm gonna watch that after we get done.
It's hilarious. But he was talking about how after Hurricane Katrina, there was a lot of filming and movies and shows and stuff that were filmed in studios in New Orleans. And so a lot of that moved to Shreveport when it was happening. And I don't think it's a lot of major stuff. It's a lot of like Hallmark type things might get filmed there. But anyways, now once Louisiana started popping off again, it all went back down there, right? Like Sinners was filmed mostly in New Orleans. And so now they have all these studios which were bought by the city of Shreveport. And now city of Shreveport is basically offering like crazy tax incentives. You can write off like up to 40% of all your production costs to do your stuff in Shreveport. And they're like renting out, like 50 Cent is renting out these like studios to do like all of his filming, and they're only charging him something like $2,200 or $2,400 a year to rent out these like studios to film. So 50 Cent is like, bro, these people are not moving to Shreveport, Louisiana.
Come on, dude. And also the draw of New York City, a lot of it is the social programs, the train, the buses, the parks,
exactly,
the infrastructure.
Yes.
These things are not a product of capitalism. They're a product of social services and things that you pay taxes into. A lot of people are happy to pay taxes into New York City because they get to live in one of the most vibrant cities in the world. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. Is it expensive? Yes, but they're not leaving because it's a fucking great city. They're not gonna. They can have more money in freaking Texas, but they're not going to the middle of nowhere in Texas because they want to be in New York.
That's 100% right.
Come on, dude.
And by the way, all of Zohran's policies, if implemented, are only going to make those things better for rich people. It's going to make it better. Like it's so funny to me when you watch right-wing people go to the foreign countries and they'll like pull out their camera like, look how nice this is. There's no homeless people laying around everywhere. There's none of this like crazy stuff. There's no violence. I'm not scared. Why do you think that is? Because those countries that they're in are usually countries that are further to the left, maybe democratic or social democracies where they actually take care of people. Because they don't have to have homeless people laying around everywhere because maybe they have a housing first policy or something like that. People aren't competing for bread.
You know Ramit Sethi?
No. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so he's talked a lot about what's the upcoming election, and he's been trolling the right for years because he's a rich guy who lives in New York, loves New York. He's like, I'm happy to pay my taxes.
He's got that Netflix show.
Yep, he's got a Netflix show. How to I'll Teach You to Be Rich. He's got a podcast that I like a lot, more left-leaning. Personal finance content, which is great. But he said, all the rich people that are leaving New York, put your apartments on Street Easy and send me the link because I'm going to send them to my audience.
Amazing, bro.
But he said, I ain't got none yet. Nobody's leaving. Like you said, they've been trying to leave for 15 years. It's not happening.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So, yeah, man.
That's a brain dead take, honestly.
Yeah, it is. But you got anything else on that you want to touch on?
Man, no, I think we said it all. It's just at the end of the day, I just want to. I really hope that people don't lose sight of talking about getting caught up in the celebrity of it all. That's
a good point.
Right, because even like the critiques of some of the people I see on the left are critiques about Zohran. If you can't get excited about Zohran, get excited about the rising class consciousness that's taking place. Yeah, it's a great opportunity. And then go in there and take advantage of that and actually capitalize no pun intended, on that movement and on that grassroots support for people being more excited about socialism.
Yeah, and people haven't been this excited, I don't think, really about a person, even though it's not necessarily about the person, but about a movement since Obama.
Yeah.
So I think it's an interesting time. We'll see what happens in the aftermath.
100%. You need people all along the way, right? Like, I am further to the left than Bernie now. And I used to think Bernie was like a radical leftist, right? But now I understand that he's really not, he doesn't even function like a socialist. He hasn't in a long time. He's a social democrat. Yeah. But I still credit Bernie with helping me move further to the left.
A lot of people, myself included, Bernie destigmatized the word socialism for a lot of Americans.
That's exactly right.
A great thing.
That's huge. And we can't forget that it's even when we have critiques to give from the left, they should always be delivered from the perspective of bringing people home, not further alienating people and dividing people, but actually bringing people home to this realization that like we should have a government that's for the people and by the people.
Yeah. Speaking of dividing, the right is having a little bit of a division right now. They've been having it for a while, but right now in particular, Nick Fuentes and Tucker Carlson are kind of stirring up the pot a little bit on the right. And a lot of it is actually having to do with Israel. But if you didn't hear, Nick Fuentes and Tucker Carlson, they did an interview. I think after Charlie Kirk's untimely passing, there's been kind of a question on the right of who's going to kind of carry the mantle for young men on the right, because he kind of, in his Turning Point USA movement, kind of carried that torch. And to the chagrin of some, myself included, Nick Fuentes has kind of been tapped. I don't even know if they've tapped him, the establishment has, but he's just kind of risen a little bit from the ashes. And so he's been doing a little media tour. He's been on with, what's the dude's name that has a podcast with, I forget his name. Doesn't matter. But he was on recently with Tucker Carlson, and they got into a lot of conversation. Tucker Carlson had some choice words from him in the past. He called him a little gay kid and all types of shit. But I guess now that he's seeing Nick Fuentes is kind of, he's not going away. He said, let me bring him on the show. So I listened and watched the whole interview. It was interesting. I don't know if you got a chance to see any of it.
I saw a bunch of clips of it.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I learned a lot about Nick Fuentes that I didn't realize, and he's been through a lot, and most of it is his own fault, but he has been through a lot. So he talked about his story of coming up and kind of being radicalized as an 18-year-old, and he was 18 when Trump got elected, and he was stepping on to college campus for the first time in Boston, and he was a Trump supporter, and he wore a hat. He did a debate on campus with some people on the left and got the attention of some folks that were kind of close with Ben Shapiro. So he kind of went in and talked about his rise. He got started super early. He was so young, 18, 19, and started his own show on the internet. And then got a lot of backlash, rightfully so. He kind of, the thing that I think is so weird about Fuentes is that he acts as if people shunning him was not for good reason, right? When you say incredibly racist, bigoted things with no filter, it helps you to get attention, but you have to also recognize that you're going to alienate almost everyone. And that's what happened. He was very anti-Semitic. He was very unabashedly racist, and people started to shun him because of that. There was a segment of people that kind of felt like this was, the kind of content that they wanted. And so he kind of grew on the dark web and on the 4chan dark subreddits. But he was kind of shunned by a lot of people on the right. But now over the course of the past, few years, as Donald Trump has kind of further radicalized the left, he's kind of come of age. And so other things happened to him after the 2024 election. I saw this tweet. I don't know if you saw it. He put out a tweet, even though he said he didn't vote for Trump. He said, "Your body, my choice."
Yes.
Mocking my body,
that blew
my
up.
choice.
That became a big thing.
Yeah, it blew up, and somebody actually came to his house.
Yeah, which is not far from here.
Assassinate him.
Yeah, he's in Chicago.
Yeah. So he grew up in Chicago. So he talks about
he lives here still.
He still lives here.
Yeah, that house that they went to is not far from where we're at.
I did not realize that. Okay, I thought he moved out. But yeah, so it's interesting. So they talk about his story, and they kind of like, this thing that's dangerous about this interview, they kind of make him seem like an underdog figure that's a little bit heroic, that's kind of beat the odds, and he's been shunned by the establishment, and his takes on Israel are now kind of coming around, and people are now supporting him and seeing that Israel is actually not a nation that Americans should be sending money to. And there's actually like some points of agreement that we may have with that position, but for non-anti-Semitic reasons.
Sure, yeah.
But him and Carlson they go back and forth on that a little bit, even though they have a lot of agreement. So now he's talking about his rise, and he has a little bit of clout and cachet, and he's kind of operating a little bit like Trump. And Trump was kind of what he calls his political awakening, but he's talking about people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and some other people that I haven't heard of that are a part of the right-wing intelligentsia that have shunned him in the past or spoken back against him in the past, and now he feels like he's able to get his get back.
Right.
So he's trying to blast these people on his show and talk about how they're hypocrites and these individuals shouldn't be listened to. And I don't know, he's kind of acting like Trump, right? Like he's a little vindictive, and that comes across in the interview.
Yeah.
And so he says a lot of things, but across the right now, you've got reactions, right? So Ben Shapiro, he's known about Fuentes for almost a decade. I forget the woman's name that worked with Ben Shapiro that was trying to get him to be Fuentes to be mentored by Shapiro. But once the anti-Semitism kind of started popping up, of course, Shapiro didn't like that. So, but recently Shapiro kind of came out again and made a video saying Carlson is anti-Semitic, Fuentes is anti-Semitic. He was playing clips of things that are just insane. I'm not going to even try to repeat the things that Fuentes actually says.
You don't have to look very far to see like how...
Just insane, right? And so you listen to the podcast and like, he sounds like a crazy right-wing nut job, but it's even worse than that. If you listen to
these guys are Yazis. He's a Yazi. Yeah, he loves Hitler.
Yeah, he said it in the interview. He loves Hitler. He said in the interview he loves Stalin, and Carlson didn't even double down and ask him a follow-up question on that. Right. So now you're seeing in the right-wing media, people are like, hey, we can't allow these people in our movement. These people have no place in the MAG movement. Then you have other people that are kind of coming up and talking back at TPUSA events saying, why are you supporting, why is the right supportive of Israel? So they're kind of having a little mini civil war on the right-hand side. I don't know if you've seen that a little bit.
Yeah, no, for sure, because you had the guy, the head of the Heritage Foundation, which is, Project 2025 came out of there. And they basically, now the Project 2025 people from Heritage are basically now staffing the entire Trump administration. But the head of Heritage came out in support of Fuentes and Carlson.
I didn't see that. He came out in support of them.
After the interview.
Jesus Christ.
And there has been a little bit of pushback from staffers, so he came out and then apologized a little bit and pushed back a little bit. But it's interesting because just like there are factions on the left, there are factions on the right that are competing for power. Now the difference is the factions on the left are anti-capitalists.
Yeah.
The factions on the right are even broader and bigger because I argue that they include the Democrats, right? And this is why I put a TikTok out about this recently. People were mourning Dick Cheney's death, or not, and some people were mourning, and a lot of people were celebrating it, right? And rightfully so. He's responsible for the death of millions of people.
Yeah.
And so, my favorite clip ever still is, I don't know if you ever saw when Sacha Baron Cohen had that show and he went undercover as an Israeli Mossad agent.
I didn't see that.
And he was he was doing an interview show as an ex-Mossad agent or ex-IDF soldier, something like that. Okay. And he's interviewing Dick Cheney, and he has a jug of water that you could use to pour, you could use that for waterboarding basically.
Oh, shit.
And he's like, this is my waterboarding device. He asked Dick Cheney to autograph it, and Dick Cheney autographs it for him.
Oh shit!
Yes.
Jesus Christ.
And so people are, rightfully happy that this war criminal is gone. But I wanted to point out, actually, don't forget that Dick Cheney endorsed Kamala Harris in this last election, because at the end of the day, a liberal is still a capitalist, and so these are the people that are on the right. And their factions swing all the way from the further left side of that, like a Obama or a Biden or a Kamala, all the way to the crazy right side of that. And there's even two splintering factions on the far right side of that, which are the Bannons and the Musks.
Okay, break that down a little bit.
Right, so you have in the center of the right, kind of, you have the Democrats.
Yep.
To the right of them, you have the classical Republicans, the John McCains, the Dick Cheneys, the George Bushes, right? They all kind of work together. They focus on making sure they highlight social issues because that doesn't actually touch the pockets of the billionaire class at all, the people that they serve.
Yeah. And Fuentes would call those Cheney people libs, I think.
Right. And they are libs from that perspective in that they're capitalists, right? Because liberalism is capitalism at the end of the day.
Okay.
And so, but then splintering from that, you have this MAGA movement. And, Chris Hedges has this great article that he put out right before the election last year where he talks about how this is a war between oligarchic capitalism and corporate capitalism. The corporate capitalists, that is the faction that broadly contains the Republicans and the Democrats. And in that faction, they want to make sure that the system of global capital runs smoothly and efficiently and predictable so that global markets function appropriately and that those people can get rich and wealthy. And there are billionaires that are invested in those systems that have invested in those kinds of politicians. Sure. Then you have the oligarchic class that doesn't make money by building businesses that actually sell and make things. Okay. They make the venture capitalist class, essentially. They make money by breaking businesses. They make money by chaos and confusion and by what you call rentier capitalism. So instead of owning necessarily the means of production, you're not just owning them, you're renting them out. It's more like feudalism. Sure. So like a traditional capitalist want to own the music and then sell you a copy of the music. A rentier capitalist, the oligarchic class, that kind of more wild version, they want to rent you the music on Spotify. You never actually get to buy it and own it yourself. You just are constantly setting up toll booths all around everything you need to survive. Techno-feudalism, right? That's where it's headed. Yeah. And so on that side of things, you then have the MAGA people, the America First people, but then you have the just us first people, like the Musk, Peter Thiel, Palantir people, that class of people. And here's my distinction there, is the MAGA, America First people, like the Bannon people, the Nick Fuenteses, the Tucker Carlsons, they're actually ideologically driven. To where they're primarily driven by, they want to create a white society, for whites, by whites, for white men specifically. They want to put women in their place. They want to establish the patriarchy.
They talk about that very explicitly towards the end of the episode.
Very explicitly. The Peter Thiel people, they want transhumanism. They don't even care about the existence of humans at all. Right? There's still white supremacists, there's still all of that. But what they're really looking for is not to recreate the great American society of the past. They're looking to transgress even future. Like there's that interview with Peter Thiel where he says, that the problem with trans people isn't that they're going too far, it's that they're not going far enough. We don't just want to exchange genitals, we want to exchange the brain, the mind, the heart, the lungs. We basically want to turn you into robots. And he says we shouldn't just want transsexuality, we should want transhumanism. And that's when they ask him, we might roll that clip or something, where they ask him that, do you want humans to persist, humanity to persist? And he's like, he sounds just like Musk in that clip about Zohran, right? These people can't get a freaking sentence out. But that's the difference in my mind, is that there are warring factions over there to compete. That's why if you listen to Bannon talk about it, listening to Steve Bannon for anybody like you or me can actually be quite informative, because he openly denigrates those people and talks about how we got to get them out of here.
He's aligned with Alex Jones. I'm making connections back to 15 years ago when I was listening to that guy, and he talked about the transhumanist people. He conflated a million different categories because I think he's got schizophrenia or something.
He's not.
But he talked a lot about the transhumanist class and the people that wrote and have been planning to try to live forever and humanity be damned. It's not until recently that I've been, paying attention to what Peter Thiel and Elon Musk and the things that they're actually doing and talking about, and even the push for AI, that this is kind of what's actually, they think at least it's in play in the coming future. And so it is kind of crazy now that we're in a moment where they're really trying to put the final touches on this, what they feel like is a master plan. Is it actually feasible? Is it going to happen? I don't know, but I think the thing that's the most important is that they think it's going to happen. They think it's possible. And so, I don't know, I haven't spent a lot of time just trying to parse out the distinctions between like a Bannon and a Musk, but I very clearly can see that as they talk back and forth that they're not aligned, and they're trying to curry favor with Trump. And it's kind of hard. He's such a chaotic bull in a china shop. It's kind of hard to corral him, but it does seem like they both see this moment as an opportunity to further their own agendas.
And it's a competition for Trump's favor, because he's the pawn that everyone's trying to use, because he has no ideological bent either way. He's just trying to stay out of jail and make make You know what I mean? I feel like that's basically Trump's main motivation. But that's why like a Bannon will align with like a Fuentes or and a Tucker, by the way. Which I've heard some people say that the right is in trouble because when Trump passes away, they don't really have anybody because Vance can't step in and fill that spot. I really don't think he can. I think they're all forgetting about Tucker Carlson. Yeah. I think he's that guy.
They've got plenty
and he's dangerous.
Yeah, they got plenty of people that they could tap. I think Carlson is one of them. I do think that they're not going to be able to capture the same level of cult following that Trump has, but I don't necessarily think that matters. We're just not going back to business as usual, right? Like at the end of the day, like we're entering a new period of political reality in this nation that it's not going back to the center.
Right.
It's really not. On the right, it's going further right. On the left, I'm happy that it's has an opportunity to go for the left. And the only people that could sabotage that ultimately, I think, are the Democratic establishment, who, as we're seeing, they're kind of losing their grip on the electorate, because we're seeing a lot of people are awakening to the fact that, hey man, whatever y'all been selling us is bullshit.
Yes.
And we're getting desperate enough that we know that this is bullshit, and we're not going to stand for it anymore.
Bro, that's so good. And actually, I have a clip that I want us to watch, and it kind of ties back into the Zohran thing a little bit, but it gets exactly what you're talking about. The Democratic Party is terrified right now, and they are doing goofy shit. Like, watch this.
Let's watch.
Donald Trump, since I know you're watching, turn the volume up. No.
Okay, so I have a bunch of thoughts about this, right?
Yeah.
One, it's corny because it's coming from the Democratic Party, but if some just random kid put that out on TikTok, the edit goes hard, right?
Absolutely.
Like, pretty dope. You put some GNX on it and I'm gonna like it.
Of course.
But what this is, I think the Democratic Party is doing a few things right here, because just like you said, it is not gonna be business as usual moving forward. To tell you the truth, I have no idea what's gonna happen. I have no idea how this thing is going to shake out. And there aren't, anybody that tries pretending they're a fortune teller, they can tell you exactly what's going to happen, is lying to you. But what I do think I see happening in this video is a few things. One, I think the Democratic Party is they're scrambling to get some of the momentum and some of the attention that's on Zohran and on his ideas back onto themselves, to kind of pretend now as if they support him when Schumer didn't even endorse him to the end. Hakeem Jeffries didn't endorse him until right up until the very end. And even then, when they asked to talk about him, he's like,
Yeah, they're basically like, is he the face? They're asking him, is the face of the party at? Nah.
Yeah, not really, right?
They're trying to poo-poo it.
And I heard somebody say that one of three things can happen with Zohran right now, right? That one, he's going to change the Democratic Party. Two, the Democratic Party will change him. Or three, he'll have to leave the Democratic Party. And I think that's exactly right, because we cannot forget that the Democratic Party exists in order to be an anti-revolutionary force against anything that moves to the left, and to fight and establish and keep capitalism safe. And so even when the Democrats endorse progressive social issues, it's only because they realize they have to do that in order to preserve capital. Like, we do not have to go that far back in time to remember that when Obama and Hillary were running, I'm pretty sure they were both not pro-gay marriage even.
Absolutely not.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so once they realize, though, like, oh, we have to do this, they try to latch onto it.
Yeah.
Now, the problem with Zohran is he's not just all identity politics. He's actual class politics are involved. And there's actually class rhetoric that's involved, and things that could hurt the pockets of billionaires, potentially lead to, like I've been talking about, a rising class consciousness. So I feel like this video is a threat. I feel like this video is a threat, but a different kind of threat. Like before, the threats were coming with vinegar, right? Attacks on Mamdani, right? Now they realize, okay, you know what? Maybe honey does attract more flies than vinegar. You know what I mean? You can catch more flies with honey than vinegar, so to speak. And now this is kind of like Jesus going up onto the temple or on top of the mountain with Lucifer, and being like, look at all of this, Jesus. If you will just bow to me, all of this can be yours. Everything the light touches, Simba, right? This is them going, hey, look, we can make you a star. wouldn't it be nice? See what we did for Obama. You see those Netflix specials. He's making $50 million, $100 million off of Netflix specials. Matter of fact, how would you like a call from Mr. Obama? Obama called him, right?
Yep, he called him.
Hey, how was that call? Wasn't that call nice? Hey, let's just set up some meetings with Bill Ackman and a few other billionaires, right? He's meeting with Jamie Dimon. He's meeting with Bill Ackman. And he might just be doing that to tell them to go F themselves, or to say, they're major power players in the city. You can't just totally eschew or whatever. But what they want him to do is they're trying to make the second option happen. They're saying, you're not going to change us. Because that question asked to Hakeem Jeffries, asked to Chuck Schumer, asked to any leader in the Democratic Party, is Mamdani going to be the new face of the Democratic Party? That's a threat to the central operating, governing principles of the Democratic Party, which is to defend capitalism at any cost. And so they respond to that threat with another threat in the guise of a suggestion, in the guise of an offer. And some people go, oh, you're being paranoid, you're being this, you're being that. Come on, guys. We're dealing with one of the most sophisticated political organizations in the history of the world. There's not a single person that would green light that video, that would commission that video, that actually supports and likes Zohran's platform.
Yeah, I think we're going to see through. I hope the people can see through it this time around.
I hope
we saw
so.
what happened with Bernie got blackballed. We saw Obama kind of, like you were mentioning earlier, put himself forward as a real agent of change, but kind of fell flat. And, even J. Cole talked a little bit about it in that one song where he said, Obama's like, there's a lot of things I want to fix, but the shit nigga politics, right? So that's sort of like, well, I can only do so much because of the practical limitations, but there's also a lot of things that you didn't have to do that you did do, right? And so I think the hope would be that even if they try to do that, our hope is not necessarily even in Zohran Mamdani. And I hope that people can realize, like, hey, the movement is not dependent on the man.
Yes.
And so we hope, but we're going to critique, and we hope, but we're also going to, like we were mentioning earlier, organize.
That's right.
And I think that because of social media, we don't have to be beholden to one person dictating how we feel about the movement. Right?
Yeah.
But I fear, like you said, I fear that one of those outcomes is going to take place. And honestly, there's a fourth outcome if he doesn't capitulate, doesn't leave, and the party starts to change. The ballot or the bullet, and it could be the latter.
That's right, yeah.
So
like Trump said, they could arrest him and deport him too, right? Just another way to terminate him, to eliminate him.
Right.
Yeah, they got to get rid of him. And dude, it really bothers me. Like it bothers me that I was fooled and tricked by liberalism for so long, by the Obamas for so long, like that J. Cole lyric that you just quoted. But the politics, right? I used to believe that line. But let's just pause and think about this. Like, Obama's greatest accomplishment in domestic policy was Obamacare. Yep. And there were some good things that it did in terms of, pre-existing conditions and stuff like that. But we can trace the damage of Obamacare to this moment that we're in right now with SNAP benefits, because instead of actually fighting to create Medicare for all or actual socialized healthcare system, or a healthcare system that made sense, what Obama did is said, you know what, instead of getting rid of these greedy middlemen, because by the way, all health insurance is like the mafia that stands in between you and your doctor, right? Like, well, it's a protection racket, right? Like, well, you can go see your doctor, but it would be a shame if something bad happened to you. You better pay us, right? And it just creates an additional layer of money for a profit that has to get siphoned out. Instead of actually doing something that combated that, Obama said, you know what we're going to do? I'm actually going to make it illegal for you to not buy this product from these people. You have to buy it. We'll just create some subsidies for people that make it a little bit easier if you're super poor to buy, which those subsidies, there's still a lot of people, because it's all means tested. So there's a lot of people who don't qualify for subsidies, but still then can't afford the insurance. Yeah. So where are we at with now? Why are they able to withhold? Why are we at a government shutdown where they're withholding SNAP? It's because the government doesn't want to, the Trump administration doesn't want to continue the Obamacare subsidies that make the insurance affordable for people. So Obama trapped us in this system where with people that have to buy insurance now from private companies, even though the mandate is gone or whatever, that's still the system that we're all now trapped in. And now, in order to just hold on to the scraps of making it slightly more affordable so that healthcare doesn't become unbelievably expensive for so many people, now people can't eat.
Yeah, it's insane. And I think it gets to the limits of reform, right? Because liberalism is about, as I was reading and mentioned the book last time, reform as being the tool that makes change happen in the world. And I think that reform can get you so far in some circumstances. I think you need to have give and take in some circumstances, but when you're dealing with something like a system of capitalism that is controlling whether people can see a doctor or not, and the people with the power in that system are the ones who are controlling whether you get
that's the thing,
healthcare or not, and they have the money, then reform is always going to be undone by the people who have control of the system. And so if you don't dismantle the system and make sure it's gone, then we're going to be in the position that we're at now.
Have you ever heard of the ratchet effect? That the way that Democrats work to help uphold capitalism is it essentially works like a ratchet. Like if a Republican gets in the office, they move the ratchet to the right. When a Democrat gets in office, what happens to a ratchet? Can you actually move the ratchet back to the left? No, it just stuck. So boom, they just kick it there. And then you get a Republican back in office, they move it even further, and then boom, it just gets stuck right back there. So you keep moving ever further to the right. But here's the thing about reform, in my opinion, is reform works when the people instituting the reform are not doing it in order to uphold capital, but as a part of the process of turning it over. Like a lot of people get confused about China because China is run by the Communist Party. It's a socialist government, but they have a market economy. And so people are like, well, that's not really socialism. But what they actually have is a very highly controlled market economy where they institute constantly reforms to actually maybe even prop up that system as they industrialize out of an agrarian culture. And as they industrialize the entire country, what do? They keep making it harder. They keep nationalizing more and more industries, eliminating the amount of billionaires. They never let their billionaires control the government. So yeah, you might be able to have a business in China, make a massive amount of wealth, but you're never going to be able to use that wealth to control the government. And so you can institute reforms that actually help make people's lives better and move in the right direction. But otherwise, you're putting reforms up, and what do those reforms end up doing? They end up propping up the system of global capital to make it a little bit more palatable, a little bit more digestible, and the train moves on.
Which is interesting that America sees China as its mortal enemy, because the capitalists run America, but they're not running China. So it's interesting that, you know, we see China as this mortal enemy. And, you know, I've been propagandized like the rest of us to view it that way. But as I've continued to learn, I've started to see, like, actually, China certainly ain't perfect, but the way the system is designed is a little bit different when you take a closer look, right? Like, to your point, you know, they say the good things that happen in China are a result of capitalism, and the bad things that happen are a result of the evil Communist Party.
That's right.
But what I've seen and learned recently is that China is trying to quickly go through capitalism.
They're speed running capitalism.
This is the 50-year plan or whatever. Is it 2050, China 2050 that they want to be?
They just put out the next 15 years, bro. Like where they're going to be, it's going to be crazy. Yeah, they're going to full communism, full socialism by 2050. Yeah. Because I think a lot of people want to, you know, one of the reasons, like we were talking about that guy earlier, doesn't have a functioning actual understanding of socialism or Marxism, is people just think it's like, oh, capitalism bad, socialism good, flip a light switch. What they want is to flip a light switch, go from capitalism to socialism. No, what Marx said is that history is moving, right, in a dialectical sense, right, which every current state contains its own contradiction and the seeds of its next state, right? So that in order to move from an agrarian society, you have to industrialize. And that has to happen through capitalism. So Marx talked about capitalism as being a necessary epoch in the development of human society.
Which is interesting because my naive understanding of, you know, the debate between capitalism and socialism comes in the framing of, well, capitalism brought all this great stuff to the world. Do you think that we would have this great prosperous nation if it wasn't for capitalism? That's used kind of as a critique for socialism. But you're saying that Marx doesn't even argue with that. Yeah,
I think Marx would have contended it right there in the beginning. He said that he said it's going to bring about more relative prosperity and innovation, all kinds of things all around the world. But it contains within itself a set of inherent contradictions that will eventually undo it. And that's where we get to this term, what we call now late stage capitalism, which is where we're at now, where we're seeing, oh, it's not really working anymore. And so we have two options. We can either start to transition to a socialist communist society, or we can transition back into like a kind of feudalism, or what like Yanis Varoufakis calls a techno-feudalism, maybe even. And that's what's trying to happen. Some people that are in power see, wow, this system is breaking down. It doesn't really work anymore. A lot of times when I talk about capitalism, or if you look at any of our videos that we post on capitalism, we'll get a lot of comments that they'll go, yeah, but that's not what capitalism is. Capitalism, and they try to get some textbook definition. But at the end of the day, it's like, yes, and that if you run that textbook definition out to its ultimate end, here's where it will go. That's why Marx's analysis, people forget that he was an economist. That's where his analysis ran itself out. And what China's doing, if you look at like, you talk about like American capitalism, how much prosperity it brought in America over a short period of time, it doesn't even compare. China was an agrarian society not that long ago. You look at the amount, now 95% of people in China own their own home.
What did you say?
They have 95% home ownership.
God damn.
And where they're going to be 10, 15 years from now, it's crazy because they're running through capitalism, but they're doing it to get through it, to industrialize, so that they can move to more towards a communist or socialist society.
Yeah. And man, it's incredible to think about it from an alternative perspective, because it just makes more sense that way, right?
Yeah.
Like the idea that China is just this nation that is pretending to be communist, but they're actually secretly capitalist.
Which is what
they
you hear,
realize that socialism doesn't work, and they're just figured out, actually, this is the secret. We're going to be a capitalist nation now.
Right.
That just seems like bullshit.
It is.
And so to finally kind of discover, like, actually, no, there's a reason behind this.
Exactly.
And they went through the revolution, and they went through these stages, and they're doing things with a lot of intention, and they're going to a particular place.
And this is just like my conjecture or your conjecture.
Yeah.
They put out their reports every 5 years. They put out a plan for the next 15 years, and they make tweaks and adjustments. You know, one of the reasons, bro, I've heard somebody say this, that China is able to do this, is they have a government that's run by engineers, and America has a government that's run by lawyers.
Interesting.
And so we just have like an entirely different approach to, structuring and developing things.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, man. Well, let's pivot to a different topic. We've been talking a lot about macro issues, but let's talk about something that's it's a little more micro, it's a little more personal.
All right, sounds good.
It's the relationship between men and women under capitalism.
Oh, yes.
So Scott Galloway, if you haven't heard, is kind of doing his little book tour. He's got a book coming out talking about the male loneliness epidemic, and he talks a lot about the issues that men and women are having in dating and relationships, but strictly from a man's perspective, and trying to help young men develop and grow and be better men.
Bro,
so it's been interesting. I'm sure you've seen some of the things that he's been talking about.
Yeah. I mean, I see a lot of stuff from Scott Galloway.
Yeah.
Scott Galloway is like the cartoon picture, like the perfect picture of the leftist critique of a liberal.
No, you're right.
Like in every way. Like if you want to know what the difference is between a leftist and a liberal, just look at Scott Galloway.
Yeah.
It says a lot of things that might sound nice on their face.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day are,
just got to dig a little deeper.
Full of dead man's bones.
Yeah. Let's play his clip from him going on The View. He's been doing, like I said, a pre-book tour, and he's talking about young men. But let's play this clip first.
Men need relationships. They need it more than women. There's this cartoon of a woman in her 30s who didn't find romantic love and is now living with cats. The reality is she's fine. Yeah. When women don't have a relationship, they pour that energy into their friends and their work. When a man doesn't have a relationship, he pours it into conspiracy theory, porn, and misogyny. Wow. Men need relationships much more than women. So this is how we get men more economically viable. Better tax policies, more vocational programming, and also, I think the public policy that would benefit men the most is universal child care. Because we need the greatest level of self-harm, the zone of quote-unquote suicide for a man, is the year after he's divorced. And the greatest cause of divorce is not a lack of values, it's not infidelity, it's economic strain. We need to put more money in the hands of younger people. And my generation, which has registered a disproportionate amount of wealth, needs to pay it back. We have a debt, but we cannot hold young men accountable for my privilege. It's just not fair.
Oh my gosh.
There's a lot there. Where to begin?
There's so much that is frustrating about everything that just happened right there.
Yeah, there's so many ways to look at it. We could look at it from the end of what he said, but I want to start at the beginning. Okay. And he talked about how men need relationships more than women. Implicitly, I think he was saying that men need romantic relationships more than women, because he talked about men that are not in romantic relationships or on porn and in the basement, conspiracy theories. I think he has a lot of what feels like gender or sex determinism in his explanations, because what's the difference between
gender essentialism?
Gender essentialism, right? Like, what's the difference between a man and a woman who is single, right? Men are not socialized to be in relationships, platonic relationships with other men.
Come on,
bro.
In
the way that women are. It's not because there's something inherently wrong with men, and it's not something that being in a romantic relationship that with a woman is going to be able to fix. If I'm a woman and I'm going to be in a relationship with a man, am I thinking, I want to be in a relationship with a man that hasn't figured out how to establish any platonic relationships with women, doesn't have any romantic or platonic relationships with other men, doesn't know how to express vulnerability, doesn't have any relational skills.
Right.
I'm going to be the solution to a man's problem.
Come on.
What woman would want to sign up for that?
That sounds terrible.
But that's what he's promoting.
Yes.
And people are clapping and cheering in the background. I'm like, are y'all not thinking about this? Like in my own experience, I'm thinking about the relationships, the platonic relationships with women that I have. And the fulfillment that I get from
men are needy losers that need women to fix them.
Right, like and women in a romantic context to fix them.
Right,
like learn how to be
not even as friends.
Yeah, learn how to be friends with other dudes in a vulnerable manner,
or other women.
Learn how to be friends with women. I've learned so much from the relationships that I have with women, platonic relationships, right? Because there is a difference in socialization that women get when it comes to dealing with their emotions, when it comes to having intentional conversations.
Right,
you know, there's this like stereotype that a lot of men can sit for 3 hours and watch sports and leave, and then you go home to your girlfriend and you ask, oh, how's so-so doing? And you have no answer for it, right? Like that's a real thing, that can happen.
Yeah, but that's not inherent within men. That's because of how men are socialized.
It's because of the patriarchal culture that we live in. We'll touch on this a little bit later.
Yes.
But so that's one angle that I think he gets incredibly wrong, and I think it's harmful. He points out real issues, because there are men that are single and they, instead of like figuring out how to develop and grow and like he'll say dress better, work on your social skills and, you know, get a career that's actually viable and allow you to make some money. I think those are good things, right? But I think ultimately if you don't have relational skills, why would you end up as a good partner in a romantic relationship? Yep. So I think that's one point. He gets into a lot of other things as well. He talks about the need for men to be providers. That's one of the things he says. Protectors, I forget the third P. But I think it's interesting because Scott Galloway is himself not necessarily a expert on gender and sexuality
at all.
He's a marketer and he's selling the book. And I understand, you know, just because you have an expertise in one thing doesn't mean you can't talk about other things. Right. But if you're doing what he's doing, kind of putting out a book, promoting yourself as like the guru for young men. Anytime there's a young man that shoots up a school or something, CNN's calling Scott Galloway nowadays. He's got plenty of podcasts talking about these issues. But his background is in marketing. He's a capitalist. He's worth, I think, $100 million now. And so it makes sense that a lot of the things that he prescribes men do is to buy into the capitalist system to make more money, to be able to provide. He talks about his own experience when he first felt like a real man is when he made enough money to be able to help his mother out who's in the hospital, which I think is a admirable thing to be able to do, to help your parents out financially. But there's something hidden behind that statement. It's that to be a real man is to be someone who is financially viable.
Who's someone who's winning the game.
Who's winning the game of capitalism, right? But what Bell Hooks talks about in her book on masculinity is that manhood and men should not be about performance. It doesn't have to be about what you do, what you can bring to the table. Your value is in just that you're a human living being. And I think that's what some things that Scott Galloway ultimately misses in his assessment to young men. It's not all bad, but kind of like you said, like the distinction between a liberal and a leftist. He says some things that are good and you'll nod your head. And you'll be like, okay,
that's what's so frustrating about it.
But then you dig a little deeper and you're like, actually, some of the assumptions that you're basing your responses off of actually doesn't work at the end of the day.
100%. And it bothers me because like it can be so easy that if you don't watch a video like that with a critical eye to feel like, wow, like this is really progressive. This is really like, this is like lefty kind of talk. And you know, it's instead of locating like the problem with, because like what's his solution for young men? Like, how are they going to accomplish this? Oh, if they start dating somebody, suddenly they're going to be good at capitalism. You know how many broke married people there are? And by the way, broke married people with a great relationship. That are good people, that have friends. You know, instead of anything but dismantling capitalism
or patriarchy.
Anything other than, you know, changing the system that he has benefited from. And that's essentially, at the end of the day, that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to put a human face on this dehumanizing system of oppression and imperialism to make it look like, hey, you can actually, you know, a few more people can win this. And also it says nothing you know, none of what he has to say about men has anything to do with, you know, neurodivergent men or gay men or bi men or anything like that. There's all
Honestly,
that gender
even men
essentialism.
that are not white middle class men.
Or even non-white middle class men. Exactly. It really applies to people like me only.
Yeah.
And even like how dumb it is to think that to say the problem is that people my age, old people, have too much money, and we need to put more money in the hands of younger people. Oh, really? All old people in America are all doing really well financially. I looked up a stat while we were watching. I think 40% of baby boomers are on track to maintain their lifestyle. Another stat says 51% are on track to meet their retirement goals, which I guarantee those goals aren't high. But listen to this. 67% of baby boomers are not financially prepared for retirement, and over 25% of workers that are baby boomers have no retirement savings. So the problem isn't just that all the rich people, all the old people have all the money and the young people don't. We're hoarding it. There's a problem there, but it's not with old people. It's with people who happen to be old that are all capitalists who've hoarded all the money up at the top. Because the system of capitalism functions in such a way that it siphons all of the money out of the economy that should be being spread around more and distributed more, and it gives it to people. And then what do they do with that money? They buy more assets because they can't spend it. Once you have a certain amount of money, you bought all the things that you want. You can't spend it on things that actually put money back into the economy and distribute the money back into the economy. So what do? They buy more assets. Then what do those assets do? Those assets earn at minimum 5% average return for them, right? So they're gonna then get more money. Now what do they do with that extra 5%? They buy more assets. Then what do they buy more assets until guess what? There's less and less assets around for anybody else. That's why people can't even afford to buy a home anymore. Not because there's just a handful of old people that have or because all the old people have all the money. It's because a handful of capitalists across all generations have all the money.
Yeah. I think we need to just stop letting people that have $100 million net worths lecture us about common people's issues.
Come on.
Because at the end of the day, you don't know what regular people are going through. You're talking from your own experience that happened 40 years ago when you were a young man. He's something 60 years old now. He has personal experience with his own kids, but his kids are growing up in absorbent amounts of wealth.
That's right.
So the struggles that your kids may feel, though they may be real, they're not relatable to the average person. They're not relatable to the average man. And like we said, his target audience for the book is probably affluent, middle-aged, middle-class white men. He has an anecdote in the book. I was listening to a review of the book, and they were talking about some of the anecdotes that he gives. And he says that young men should go work a service job so that they know what it's like to be a service worker, as if there's not a very large subset of men who just work service jobs because they have to.
That's right.
And so it's just completely out of touch with what regular people are going through. And again, like, why is someone who is super rich, who doesn't have a degree or an understanding of gender studies, telling us about gender and the issues that are going on with young men? I think it's because we think that people that have money just ultimately,
we think that they just know,
they can tell us about anything.
They can tell us about anything.
If you made $1 billion, you could tell me how to wash my clothes. You could tell me how to change my oil. You could tell me how to change the remote on my TV. You can tell me how to wipe my ass. If you rich, you can give me advice on anything. I'll listen to you when it comes to anything, because you can learn how to make money.
It honestly, that sounds like a cartoon, but that is how people think. And I know people that talk explicitly like that. People that I work in business with, that's literally what they believe. Why would you take any advice from a broke person on anything? That's how they talk. And was that review you're watching from Anti-Fascist
Yes.
Dad? Shout out to Anti-Fascist Dad. Go follow him, Matthew Reminick. He's got great content. But what's wild too is his suggestion that young men, when they don't have their life together, that they go to pornography and what else did he say?
Video games
and pornography, as if that's just an inherent thing within men, that's what we've always done. No, that's because young men are being targeted by the system of capitalism to extract wealth and attention from them, right? Based on these things that deliver high hits of dopamine. I don't need to talk. You guys all know about this. Plenty of people have talked about all that stuff. But young men are targeted with those things. Young men don't turn to those things. No. Young men are targeted with those things by a system that he wants to prop up and support. And that's why at the end of the day, his solutions make no consistent sense, because He doesn't really want to fix the system. He just wants to turn back the dial in time and go back to a time, a system of capitalism maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago. But all that would eventually do is lead us right back to where we are right now.
Yeah, I think on the personal level, one of the things that I think he gets at that we can touch on again when we get into the book is he talks about things that women want, and he almost makes it seem as if women are programmed to want a patriarchal man.
Yes.
A man that is
They do make it seem
big
like
and
that,
provides, and it's very red pill coded to me. And I think the appeal
Even
of
though
Scott,
he thinks he's against the red pill.
he's kind of putting himself forward as like the antidote to the red pill,
Right.
but kind
It's
of
just
like
a softer red pill.
the antidote to.
It's a more respectable red pill.
Exactly. It's not really going to solve the issue because you haven't actually engaged with the systems and structures that lead people to go to the red pill. But he does kind of make it seem like, hey, like if you clean up your room, like Jordan Peterson said, or learn how to dress and learn how to talk to women and channel these, quote unquote, masculine traits, like your sexual energy, these things are going to be able to help you live a better life. And it's not that he's all wrong. It's that on a personal level, he may have some good advice for young men, but ultimately the personal analysis can only get you so far when you're stuck within a system that is working against your flourishing. And that's both capitalism, as I'm learning, and it's also patriarchy.
Yeah.
So if you don't learn, actually, there's a structure that tells me that my emotions are bad. There's a system that I've been socialized within that hinders my ability to relate with people.
That's right.
And I'm unable to do that. And I'm not going to be able to learn and get past it unless I actually re-examine some of the ways that I've been socialized and then do the internal work of unprogramming myself, which is a journey that I'm on and have to continue to assess every single day. Like, what are the ways that patriarchy has taught me that I'm the center of the story? What are some ways that patriarchy has taught me that I don't have to deal with my emotions? I think back to when I was in high school, right? And I'm playing basketball, and sports are great. I love sports, but sports can reinforce patriarchy in ways that a lot of other things can't.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm playing basketball, and I'm struggling in this particular game. I'm not really doing anything. I was never great at basketball, but in this particular game, I wasn't playing that great. And we had two coaches. One coach was a little bit more loud. He would yell. He would scream. And the other coach was more quiet. He would typically kind of like be the good cop in the good cop, bad cop scenario.
Yeah.
So we go into halftime. And the one coach is screaming and yelling at us. I think the team we're playing sucks, and we're only winning by a little bit. So he's screaming and yelling, "You guys got to do better, yada, yada, yada." Then the quiet coach calls me out by name and says my name and says, "You're playing." I usually don't call players out, but I'm calling you out because you're playing like a real pussy.
Wow.
And to know me is to know I was a sensitive kid, right? But I learned over time to push down some of those emotions. But there comes a point in a time where you can't, as a 16-year-old kid,
100%,
keep that shit together. So not only was I publicly shamed, but I also began to let a tear shed down my eye.
Yeah.
And so I was
That's
completely humiliated, both from the coach calling me that word, but also I felt like I internalized that because I then cried, which is even more of a pussy thing to do when called out by a coach. And it wasn't until years later, as a man, that I went and rethought back and did some work that I was like, actually, you know what? That was a wrong thing for him to do. But also, like, the idea that I'm a sensitive man is not an inherently negative thing.
Right.
And that was like an unlock for me that I think a lot of men we have to learn how to do that shit. We have to learn how to do that work.
Yeah.
And that's the stuff that Scott Galloway is not teaching men to do.
Right. Yeah. He's be a stoic.
Stoicism.
Yeah. Just be a stoic performer of manhood.
Yes.
Dude, you just made me think of a story from my childhood.
Yeah.
kind of similar, but not similar, but similar about like me crying and being embarrassed. In a scenario where I should not have been embarrassed for crying, but I was, and I was shamed by all of my peers and like made fun of and taunted incessantly.
Yeah.
And it's like a scenario where it's like perfectly makes sense to cry. So I'm riding my bike. So I always wanted a nice bike. We grew up real poor in Kensington in North Philly. And one of the kids that had gone to my dad's church, he went on to be like a sponsored BMX bike racer. So he would do like BMX racing, like on like dirt tracks and stuff. And he would get these sponsored bikes. And so he had an old bike and he gave it to me, and it was like a dyno and it was like super, super like light and cool. And he put pegs on it for me. And it was my first day with the bike. and me and my friend Indrid, remember I told you about the story about my Albanian friends with the sheep? This is one of them.
Okay.
So me and my friend Indrid were riding our bikes. I'm 13.
Yeah.
We're riding our bikes, and Indrid's like, yo, those guys are following us. We noticed some other dudes were on their bikes following us. So we're like, oh crap. So we start pedaling our bikes, and this was the time where, anyway, so we're pedaling our bikes, we're trying to get away, they're catching up to us, they're older than us. They look like 16, 17.
Okay.
And so we try to get to the playground that's close, and I lived right across the street from the playground. And so in Philly culture, like gang culture, there isn't really like Bloods and Crips don't have like a strong foothold. It's like just neighborhoods. And maybe it's changed, but when I was a kid, it was like your neighborhood gang, and usually organized by playgrounds. So like you were trying to get to different places. So I lived right across the street from this playground. And like my house, like literally right across the street, our row home. And we get like right up into there, and we pull into the playground because there's a bunch of people that we know on this playground. And I'm trying to get to the basketball court because it's packed. There's probably like 40 people playing playing ball.
Yeah.
And there's like kids playing. There's all kinds of stuff going on. It's a beautiful summer day. And before we can make it to the basketball court, these dudes pull up on us. And so we're stopped. They're stopped. And he's just like, hey, get off the bike. Give me the bike. And I'm like, no, I'm not giving you my bike. And so like, cause people are watching, there's like other kids around.
Oh, shit.
And so I'm trying to be tough. He's like, get off the bike before I make you give it to me. I'm like, I want to see you make me give it to you. Like I'm trying to be tough, you know what I mean? And he's like, I forget, he said something, and then he just pulls out a gun.
Oh shit.
And he puts it on my face, like puts the steel like on my face of the gun. And I just start, I just start bawling. I just start crying.
Yeah.
I'm like terrified. And so he takes the bike and they go off, right? And two things happen. One that was kind of cool, one was not so cool. One kid is immediately like, yo, is he crying? Yo, you a pussy, blah, blah, blah. Like kids like making fun of me for crying.
Yeah.
But then one thing that was kind of cool is some older kids from the playground saw what happened. And I say older kids, I'm talking like 20, 21 probably.
Yeah.
Like, so they come and they run over from playing basketball because they see all this happening. Now to them, it's also kind of like, these two guys that stole my bike are not from our neighborhood. That's disrespectful.
Yeah.
Right? So they run over, they're like, what happened, little Barnaby? I'm like, they took my bike. Because my dad's the pastor in the community. Like everyone knows who my dad is.
Yeah.
And my dad ran a juvenile day treatment program for violent juvenile offenders that were court ordered from the city to attend as a condition of release from juvie, or as an alternative to jail or juvie, right? So one or two of these guys had been in my dad's program and aged out. So there's like a lot of respect there too from my dad, because it was a great program for kids. He actually won awards for being like the #1 juvenile delinquent program in the city. And they were all violent offenders. So like, so we're talking about some tough dudes.
Absolutely.
So they just take off. I don't know what happens. I go back across the street. Indrid comes with me. My mom comes out. Some kids knock on the door. My mom comes out. I'm crying. But the crazy thing about the story is I've told the story a million times. I never even thought about the crazy part being the crazy part. The crazy part is that I, for so long in that moment and thereafter, felt ashamed of myself and embarrassed and humiliated for being because I'm a man, and I cried as a 13-year-old boy who had a gun pulled on him and put on his face.
Yeah.
The other crazy part of the story is that like 10 minutes later, a Honda Accord whips around the corner, and the dude that stole my bike is sitting in the back in between two other dudes, and my bike's in the trunk.
Oh shit.
They give me my bike,
got him.
and they said, hey, Mrs. Barnaby, don't worry, you ain't gonna see these guys around here anymore. I don't know what ever happened to them.
Oh snap.
Yeah, but
somebody had your back.
Yeah, somebody had my back.
Yeah.
And so, bro, you telling that story right now is the first time ever
Really?
I ever in my life thought like, wow, that was what a stranglehold patriarchy had on me from such a young age, that I was ashamed and humiliated for feeling emotions because I was somebody threatened my life.
Terrified that your life was in danger.
Yes.
Somebody could have killed you.
Bro,
that's freaking kid.
That's crazy right now. I never thought about that.
Man, that's powerful. The power of patriarchy.
Bro.
Having a normal human reaction, you're ashamed of that.
Ashamed of it.
Man. Scott Galloway.
Yeah.
This is the conversation we need. You need to be having.
And by the way, he wouldn't even have to have a degree in any of these things that we're talking about.
No.
To be worth hearing from. He would just have to at least have spent some time thinking about it outside of the inventions. And this is the thing about straight white cis men, is they think they can just come up with answers for stuff out the top of their head. I know, because I've been one my whole life. Right? I had to train myself. No, I got to go to other people. Yeah. Like, we would be able to tell if he had at least picked up a bell hooks book once in his life. and actually have something insightful to say to us.
Yes.
You're right. This is the kind of stuff that we want to hear.
Yeah, because being a man is not, ultimately, if you don't get anything from this conversation, get that being a man is not about performing. It's about being okay with your humanity.
Yeah.
And it's not even, that's what being a human is.
That's right,
And
bro.
that's what we have to unlearn as men, is that we're not here to perform for you. We're here to be, learn, love, enjoy. And of course we're do work, but that's not what makes us valuable as humans.
Right.
And if we don't unlearn that, then we're just going to be tools that can be easily used and thrown away by a system of capitalism that doesn't give a fuck about us. Just
That's
like
right.
the NFL players, you know, they'll put these guys up and they'll pay them lots of money, and they deserve the money that they get paid, but they'll tell them, hey, wear this Guardian cap. And they'll be like, no, I'm a man. I'm not going to wear this Guardian cap to protect my head in a game. And they're like, okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Don't wear it. And then after they get done, they'll try to withhold health care from them. And then when they go crazy, they'll throw them out and won't talk about them again. And these 40-year-old men that have broken down bodies have been used and abused by the system that doesn't care about them. And it's a cartoon example,
Yep.
but that's what happens with men when we take on this. I think it's called John Henryism. I think FD Signifier turned me on to that. It's the idea that a lot of black men have, that you have to work, put your head down, it doesn't matter, don't show emotion, you have to take care of everybody, which some of that is good. Taking care of people and doing your best to care for those around you is good. But when you say, I'm going to kill myself literally in work because I have to make sure that everybody else is okay, it doesn't do you good. And ultimately you leave the people that you're trying to work for alone because you can't front that burden for so long. It kills you.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. His solution to the crisis with young men is to put more pressure on them to perform.
It's as if there hasn't been men who have lived across the world that have found value in community and love and support without having to be breadwinners and making millions of dollars a year to be able to support somebody's healthcare. It sucks that we're in that system where somebody has to do it.
Yeah.
But it's not like your value and your worth comes from winning at capitalism,
Yeah.
because that's just not true.
Yeah.
Like, the people live around the world in dignity with worth and community. Some of the people that are the most fulfilled in the world. I think I was probably the most relationally fulfilled in my life in a period of time where I had the least amount of money.
Yeah.
Because I was in community and I had
Yeah.
deep connections on a regular basis. And when I started to make more money, honestly, as much as I've tried to fight back against it, I've had less fulfillment because I haven't had as much time to spend in community.
Yeah.
So.
No, that's good, bro. That's good. And we had some more stuff to talk about him. Honestly, I don't even think that we need to cover that. We can talk about that in another episode. And because this kind of flows in perfectly to, we wanted to talk about the book, The Will to Change by Bell Hooks, which is kind of the antidote to this kind of, faux self-help for men, right?
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, I don't know. I think when I first picked up the book, I was reflecting on a short period of time where I was being enticed by like some red pill ideology. And I think that, well, one, having relationships with women kind of like gave me the vaccine to never really fall too deep into that, because you can tell men about women all day and night, but when you're actually in friendship with women and are in community with them, you start to be like, I actually don't think this is fully correct.
Right.
But I didn't have the tools to fully start to unpack and name some of the disconnect that I was starting to feel, because the red pill guys will say things like, well, women say they want men that are emotionally intelligent and are able to express their feelings, but really they're just going to go for the guy that has the toxic masculinity and the guy that's more stoic and doesn't share his feelings. And honestly, the truth in that is exposed in this book.
Yeah.
It's only half true.
Right.
It's true in that patriarchy is upheld both by men and women.
That's right.
And so that doesn't mean that women, because there's some women that are proponents of patriarchy, that men need to go back and reinforce patriarchy.
Yeah.
No, we both need to be liberated from the system of patriarchy. And I think that's one of the things that was so helpful about this book.
She covers the dynamics of that with such grace and
Such grace and
fluidity,
class,
because like it really, there is so many things that work to make that come about, right? Like one of the things she talks about in the book is that a lot of times when men finally do start to show that vulnerability, they find that like if a man starts talking about something that makes him sad, this is what Bell Hooks says, is that the woman he's talking to will then start to cry themselves, which then makes the man feel like
why did I do that?
Yeah, like why did I do that?
Yes.
Or to start to feel like, oh wow, like this is weakness. Like I don't want to see this, and it's not. And like the book gets into so good about how are we conditioned to think that?
Absolutely.
How are women conditioned to think this way? And it has to do with this kind of dialectic exchange between the relationship that a woman has with her own father, that then they have with other men, that then they impute onto the son, and that the son replays back, and then has that relationship back with like another woman, and it creates like this vortex of white supremacist capitalistic patriarchy, right? As Bell Hooks calls it.
Yeah, that's good. It also made me think about, back to sports, the difference between the way Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant are received and LeBron James. So I was always a Kobe guy. I got my Kobe bobblehead up there. He's still my favorite player, definitely not my favorite human. But the discourse around LeBron when he was first starting to come into the league was that he was soft.
Yeah.
And one of the things that people would talk about is the fact that, when he was young on the Cleveland Cavaliers, he would dap up his teammates. He would have handshakes with them. They would be jumping up and down on the sidelines as somebody if somebody did a crazy player, had a nice dunk, they would jump around. And they just seemed to be having a lot of joy.
Right.
He also was not one to be completely isolated from his teammates like a Kobe or Michael Jordan. Even people like Carmelo Anthony and Dwayne Wade, he cultivated friendships with some of the people that he came into the league with that weren't on his team. And so people saw this as weakness because he was developing relationships with his teammates and his opponents.
Friendships with other men.
Friendships with other men is seen as weakness, right? Whereas Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan, if you know the lore, these guys are like, I don't fraternize with either my teammates or my opponents. It's all business.
Bro, I saw a Scottie Pippen the other day. He was in an interview and somebody said, how many times did you and Jordan just get dinner or lunch or do something like that one-on-one while you guys played together? He said 0.
Yeah.
0 times.
Yeah, it's insane. And this sort of stoic masculinity, even Jaylen Brown, who plays on the Boston Celtics, I was watching the Starting Five documentary that follows 5 NBA players over the course of the season. And he was talking about the way he deals with his emotions, and he called out stoicism as his mantra. That's the ideology that he follows. And it's no surprise, because this is the thing that we celebrate with athletes is not when they develop relationships and so show joy with their teammates. If they win, they win the championship and they show joy, that's great. Yeah, but if you're in the middle of the season and you're just a happy-go-lucky dude, you show joy, they see that as feminine, which is what Bell Hooks says as something that patriarchal masculinity reinforces, is this opposition to anything feminine, this reflex. If something is seen as feminine, you have to go away from it and distance yourself from it as much as possible. So you see Karl Anthony Towns is a player on the New York Knicks who, he doesn't just talk in a deep voice. Sometimes his voice is high and he's funny, he's friendly. Caleb Williams on the Bears, he paints his fingernails, right? These are things that are seen as quote unquote feminine. And so a lot of men will say, hey, I don't want to be associated with anything like that. Right. Because it's feminine. And the same thing goes with homosexuality. Anything that could be considered quote unquote gay has to be pushed away. And I'm still unlearning that part as well. You know, you're in the group chats and people be saying no Diddy and pause and all that stuff. You're reinforcing this very strict idea. This is the lane that men are allowed to walk in.
This is what you're allowed to say. This is what you're allowed to feel. This is what the appropriate range of your experience is.
It's controlled in a way that femininity isn't. Right. And that's why I think the will to change is so impactful, because it exposes how unhelpful patriarchy is for men, how restricted it is. It doesn't serve us.
Yeah. There's a line in the book where she says that the first act of violence that the patriarchy demands of males is not violence against women.
Yes.
But violence against themselves, because it demands that they cut out the emotional parts of themselves from a young age.
Yeah, you can only feel anger and lust. I think those are the only things that real men are allowed to feel. Yeah.
And it's just that to be able to be a whole person. I went to Oral Roberts University, and the whole the whole mantra, like slogan of the school, is creating whole persons, mind, body, spirit. But I often used to think about like the ways in which the repression that was also, because it was a very conservative, strict school, like the repression that was like imputed onto people actually restricts anybody. If you actually want to follow their honor code, you have to sign an honor code at the beginning of every year. If you actually want to follow that honor code, it actually restricts you from being able to be a whole person. It says you can only be a person within these specific bounds of acceptable behavior, attitude, and all that. You can't actually be the whole you. And so, you know, why are they like that? All the athletes, the people that we're talking about, because from a very young age they're taught, and the dynamics are even different based on your race and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But we're all pretty much universally taught from a young age that like you can't be emotional. And so then there's a whole host of behaviors that are then associated with being emotional
or sensitive.
And at the end of the day, dude, the people that we are taught to idolize to, the people that young boys are taught to look up to, like when we're told to look up to a Kobe, when we're told to look up to a Michael, and then you look at the quality of their lives, the relationships with their kids, the relationship with their families, that's what we want people to idolize. We go, well, no, don't idolize how passionate they were about being the best at basketball. Well, that's what that required. And I've always toyed with this idea of writing a book called Winning is for Losers. Because like to really win at the highest level, you know, you look at like a Steve Jobs, asshole. Elon Musk, asshole. You talk to people about Kobe or Jordan, like their teammates, assholes, right? You know, these were not people that cultivated rich personal lives. But when I look at somebody, you could still be pretty good. Like a Dwayne Wade. They don't talk about Dwayne Wade like that. But look at Dwayne Wade's life. Look at his relationships. Look at his relationship with his daughter, right? He has a trans daughter, right? A lot of people would excise him from the community over that, and have.
And it's harder to do that with him because he has such masculine cachet because he's an athlete. If he wasn't, they would throw him in the trash.
Well, in many ways, they have relegated him to the dustbin. You know what I mean? He's not celebrated like he probably should be. You know what I mean? And you were talking about before about LeBron, right?
I feel like LeBron is like, he's a hybrid, right? Because he started out like a more happy-go-lucky relational guy. It seems like he cares about his wife and his kids. And he's very outwardly respectful and he shows affection to the people that he's around. There was a time when he went to Miami that he kind of started to kind of channel that like Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, dark energy, because he got a lot of hate for going and teaming up with, you know, even that idea of teaming up with other people is seen as like a bad thing when, you know, the GMs and the owners, they create teams with superstars all the time. But because he chose to team up with his friends, it was seen as, I mean, I will say at the time, it felt very unfair. But also Boston had a big three that also felt very unfair. But then LeBron had this period of time where he kind of tried to channel that like patriarchal masculinity. It's all on me, all the responsibilities on me. And it felt like it wasn't the real version of him. He lost his joy. Even some of the things that he said in the post game, I think after he lost to the Dallas Mavericks, people were critiquing him and saying, you know, asking him how he felt about people celebrating his loss, and he said, well, you know, people have to go back and live their regular lives and deal with all the problems they have, so why they worried about me? Just this like that's the most Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan answer, but it just didn't feel like it was him. And so I think he kind of slowly started to go back to who he truly was, as someone who has a lot of flaws, but someone who is not afraid to show joy and appreciate his teammates openly and, you know, hug and do handshakes and show that he's actually cares, at least seems like he cares about the relationships that he has with the people that is on his team.
For sure.
But the fact that part of his personality was denigrated and is seen as soft, and I don't know, some of it is a generational thing, because I think the younger generation is becoming a little bit more open, like I said, with the Caleb Williams. And there's another athlete that I think played at North Carolina, a young basketball player that painted his nails and would do things like singing. There's more space.
Jared McCain.
Yes, there's more space that's being opened up for a little bit more broader, you know, expression of masculinity. But we still have a long ways to go.
And I think one of the reasons that people are so vigilant against that is because it feels like a threat to them, because they're afraid of being exposed. Like when somebody says pause or no Diddy, it's not about you. Because if you were gay, a lot of those people, they'd be like, oh, cool. Like, you're gay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like, because you're straight, and you said they want to make sure you know that they're not.
I'm not. Yeah.
Right? Like, they know you're not. They just want to make sure you know they're not, you know?
Yeah.
And because they are, like, their identity is hanging on by a thread. Like, their ego is so fractured and bruised. It's hanging on by a thread, and they're terrified that it could be wiped out.
I gotta remove pause and no diddy from my vocabulary once and for all. Like, once I started to get hip to it, I'm like, damn, this ain't it. But culturally, it's like, I can't get away from it in the group chats with my friends. So I'm still trying to figure out how to navigate that situation. They're probably gonna listen to this in my group chat and be like, nah, you be saying it too.
I say stuff I shouldn't say all the time.
Absolutely.
You know, we're learning and growing.
Yeah.
And it's something I shouldn't say. It's just like we realize, like, oh, this is not necessarily good
helpful
for me to say this.
Yeah.
Like, this is not forming, because really everything we do, we should be thinking about through the lens of spiritual and personal formation.
Absolutely.
Like, how are we forming ourselves? And that makes me think of this creator. I don't know really what they do. I just see them on, and they're not just a creator. They're probably a poet and do all kinds of cool stuff. This person named Alok, AOLK. And Alok, I don't know what their pronouns are. I'll just use they, them. But Alok is like very femme presenting and very masc presenting at the same time. So Alok wears like very flamboyant dresses and like clothes that would usually be called women's clothes, and like, but stuff that's even like just like way more dramatic than like, you know, like it's like out there and like, you know, very flamboyant, but has like a ton of chest hair and like a bit like a thick facial hair stubble like all the time, or maybe even like a full on beard, right? And like we'll be wearing like a dress, like a short dress, and like has like really hairy legs and arms. And when you see it at first, like I had to really check myself, because even though I'm very like pro LGBTQ, pro queer affirming, all that, it just was like, there's like this sense in which like, oh, you're like that, you're not supposed to do that. And they'll talk a lot about, people say your dress would look a lot better. You might actually pass if you would shave your legs. Your dress would look, and because I don't think they're trans, I don't know, but you know, and their comments, their responses to these people are always so good and always make me reflect so much personally within myself, because it's like, you saying that is not about me. You have to hide yourself, and when you see somebody else not hiding themselves, it makes you afraid of it makes you realize and be ashamed that you're hiding yourself and afraid of what would happen if you ever showed your real self, and you feel like a desire to show who you really are. They're not saying that like, oh, you're trans or you're queer too. Just like whatever that is for you.
It's bringing something up internally for the person.
And they say like, when we learn to hide little things about ourselves, we train ourselves to hide big things about ourselves. To where we never actually get to become the people that the world never gets to see us, and we never get to see us for who we really are. We never even get to become the person that we really get to be. So what happens when you're trapped in that patriarchal masculinity, you actually don't get to develop. Your spiritual formation is stunted, and you become like a half person, a twisted version of who you could actually grow to become. That doesn't mean you become this trans queer person necessarily, but like whatever it could be, like the dad you could really be, the husband you could really be, the friend that you could really be, the relationship with yourself that you could have, you don't get to have it because you're so afraid of dropping the performance that everyone else demands you put on, because they're afraid themselves.
And that's exhausting, right? When you really pay attention to all the things that you're not allowed to do as a man, or not allowed to think, or not allowed to wear, or not allowed to, there's a million of them. and so like we've learned and have adapted over time as men to become more accustomed to those things, but ultimately like it is exhausting to wear that mask, to, you know, to put on this straitjacket of patriarchal masculinity.
It is a straitjacket.
And I think that's one of the things that I think women feel, right, when you come up into a relationship with men. When people say when men are ugly, that's the thing on discourse that people say, or men are boring. It's because, one, we're not socialized to care for our appearance as much, or express ourselves through appearance as much. And then also, we just don't showcase our interests in the same way. We're not socialized to do so in the same way as women are. So we're like taught that these are the things that you're allowed to care about.
That's right.
These are the things that you're allowed to invest your time and energy and emotional effort into, and everything else is for women and for other people. And so you're not allowed to care about or be invested in some of those things. And it's funny because, like, I don't know, as I've started to kind of allow myself to experiment a little bit more and just try to like say, hey, what do I actually like, right? Like I like reality TV. Back when I was younger, I would never watch like a Love is Blind or a Bachelor or any of that stuff. I thought that was for girls. It was a girls show. Or even like some R&B, I thought it was for girls. But I'm like, okay, I allow myself to listen to certain music or watch these. So I'm like, this actually brings out a side of me that I actually enjoy. There's a certain joy that I wouldn't have gotten if I hadn't allowed myself to open up to some things that may have been frowned upon from a certain perspective.
100%.
Before but I have to continue to like do that because the straitjacket is so strong and it's reinforced so much
every day
that I have to continue to reassess and reflect. It's so hard
to do the work in this society.
Yeah, and do the work in a society that has, it's so much more. We've been so much more indoctrinated than I think we realize.
Yeah.
So
I know that for sure. Like raising boys, like, you know, I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old son.
Yeah.
And like, I think all the time about how do I raise them to not be as damaged by this system of patriarchy, this hegemonic system that kind of rules over all men and women in America and largely around the rest of the Western world. And, you know, one of the things that Bell Hooks talks about in the book is that like fathers are in patriarchal households don't show their children love beyond a certain age, and instead take on a more, because it creates this competition envilement where like the father feels like he has to compete for his status with his sons. And there's like so many ways when I read that I would have articulated that about my relationship with my own father that I can see so clearly in so many different ways. And, you know, when I think about like how do I raise my children to not be so damaged and bruised by the patriarchy, one, I want them to feel loved. Like, so I focus on like sharing and loving my sons and showing that I love them, making sure that I continue that relationship, right? Like I love nothing more than walking down the street holding my 4-year-old's hand. And I get sad someday thinking about like, man, there's going to be a day he doesn't want to hold my hand anymore.
J. Cole made a song about that too.
Did he really?
Yes.
And you know, this makes me sad thinking about that because I love them so much. But it's hard because even trying to raise them in a non-patriarchal household from somebody who's trying to decolonize themselves from patriarchy, I realize like, man, I've taught him from a young age that there's no such thing as a boy color and a girl color, for example, just something this small. No such thing as a boy color and a girl color. All colors are for everybody. All these colors are your color, son, and you share them with everybody around the world. You get to enjoy every color. And then one day he comes home, he doesn't want to color with the pink crayon because pink is for girls. Comes home from daycare
so much you can do,
at
man.
4.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, how is that possible? But I think by providing a steady relationship of me not just having theory but walking it out. You know, like I have a very close relationship with my 3 closest male friends. And you know, there's a lot of talk out there about like you can't have a close relationship with other men. But like we talk every day, right? We share our problems, we share our challenges with each other, we encourage each other, we lift each other up, we ask each other, we don't talk trash about each other behind each other's backs, or at least they ain't doing it to me with the other guys. I don't know what you guys are doing. Right? They listen to my podcast, like these friends listen to my podcast, that's crazy, you know what I mean?
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. And so to try to model what it looks like to have a dad who even into his 40s and 50s is not just maintaining old relationship with friends, but developing new relationships with other men and having close friendships, to show what it looks like to respect women and treat them as equals, but to not teach them to also be in touch with their emotions. So this is like a big one, is when I make mistakes, I'm not perfect. sometimes I'll lose my temper. We don't spank our kids. And I yelled at my son one time, bro, and he still remembers it. And it was like 8 months ago. He brings it up to this day. And, you know, I have to give myself a little grace. My wife was gone. She was out of town working in Laredo. She does like a lot of asylum law stuff. So she was working with some people at an ICE detention facility out there, some clients. But so she was gone. I was sick to my stomach, vomiting all day. He peed the bed at like 2 a.m. I clean the sheets. I give him a bath. I put him back to bed. Like an hour later, he pees the bed again. So I'm giving him a bath. I'm vomiting into a bucket, like into like a bowl, and I'm like giving him a bath. And he like won't sit down. He's not listening. I was like, sit down. Or I don't want to say my kids now. I'll bleep that out. I'm like, sit down. Right? And he remembers that to this day. But you know what? Even that is an example of how I can teach him to be in touch with his emotions, because what I've taught him from that moment, and every time it comes up, is, and the reason he brought it up recently is because he was behaving poorly and he was getting real down on himself. He's like, oh, it's all my fault. And I was like, no, son, you got mad. You yelled at your brother. That's not an okay behavior, but it's okay to make mistakes.
Yes.
And we all make mistakes. You had big emotions that you couldn't control. Sometimes we can't control our emotions. And he's like when you yelled at me.
Gotcha.
And I'm like, yeah, like when I yelled at you. What happened when Daddy yelled at you is Daddy had really big feelings, and I wasn't strong enough to control my feelings, or I hadn't developed, I wanted to say, like, I didn't have the coping mechanism. You don't understand that language, but like, I didn't do a good job of controlling my emotions, and it's not okay. I'm sorry that I yelled at you, but I made a mistake, and I'm learning from that mistake. Have I yelled at you again since then? He was like, no, see, I'm getting better. You might yell at your brother again too. That's okay. Just get better and go over and give him a hug and a kiss and tell him you love him.
That's great.
And he did it. And so, you know, I don't know the perfect way to do it. I'm still trying to read books. I'm still trying to learn. I'm still trying to talk to other dads who I think have done a good job. I am lucky to have a couple of role models, guys that are a few years ahead of me. Their kids are starting to go to college and stuff now, and I watch the relationship that they have. I'm like, man, tell me everything you know and what you do. But yeah, man, like we, you know, as men, we owe it to ourselves. We owe it to other men to do the work. Because when I look at other men that aren't doing the work, I don't see somebody that I'm mad at for doing it. I see somebody that, man, like if only they could see how good it is on the other side of starting to actually be able to be who you really are.
Yeah, that's good, man. I think that's great. I think that's a good place to end.
Yeah, bro. This has been good, man. And, you know, I always enjoy these conversations with you.
Yeah, this was a really good one. I've enjoyed it.
Me too. All right, guys. Hey, listen, thank you for tuning in. This is Ask the Next Question, episode 5. Josh and I are really excited to be doing this. We're having a lot of fun. But I want you to know you can find us not just here on YouTube. You might be listening on Spotify, Apple Music, Overcast. You can find us everywhere you find podcasts. Please like and subscribe. Please share us with a friend. We really appreciate you guys, and we hope you stick around for the next episode.
Peace.
Peace.